Also included in the email were several pictures and comparisons from various social media sources on Brandon. The pictures from the Juggalo March and before seemed very suspicious when compared to the newer pictures of him. These men looked very similar to one another, but my brother-in-law confirmed through forensic analysis that they were indeed two different people. This was just the beginning of the odd circumstances surrounding Rhea, Brandon, and the so-called jugganati as a whole. After my brother-in-law looked into the pair, he also began looking into the jugganati, the organization that Rhea and Brandon had claimed to be a part of. The first of the red flags he found was that Brandon and Rhea were surrounded by ex-military. In looking into one of these individuals, he came across a man named Joel Long, aka 24 Eyes. Upon further research, this man was found to be at the very least ex-military intelligence and was a highly trained Marine combat specialist. This man can be seen as the handler for Brandon, if not Rhea also, as he only appears to spread propaganda when the organization begins to veer off due to its seemingly ragtag cover group on social media. Alongside this man were several known police informants and many other individuals involved in clandestine work. After our first initial salvo of investigations, we were both so confused and invigorated we began a quest to discover what was exactly going on in the Juggalo world. We came to a few initial conclusions over the coming next few days. Conclusion 1 was that the Juggalo March had been a very controlled media stunt designed to ferret out high-profile members of the Juggalo community so that they could be surveilled. Conclusion 2 was that both Rhea and Brandon had been approached by the deep state to help control the Juggalo community, and at the very least Brandon had been replaced by a look-alike and even comparison of his music before the march and after can prove that point, much less the glaringly obvious differences in facial structure and height. The Brandon Sanders of the Juggalo March had appeared at the very best 5'8". The Brandon Sanders after seen photographed in Denver, Colorado at the Dark Carnival Games convention was a man of at least 6 foot. That also leads to another seemingly government operation: the derailing of DCGCon, a peaceful gaming convention put on by ICP's record label Psychopathic Records. This convention made headlines in local news outlets for being shut down due to extreme violence and an attempted murder, only to have the headlines pulled, wiped, and whitewashed from the internet in the following days. The only way we were able to get information was an off-record phone interview my brother-in-law had conducted with a local news reporter. Another known police informant known locally as Frankie Grudge was also heavily involved in the violent end of the convention. Upon these initial findings, my brother-in-law and myself decided we would set out to expose this threat to a musical subculture that was seemingly being co-opted by the deep state. After making this decision, the harassment of my family and myself began to heat up tremendously. The first shot fired at destroying my life took place when I was informed that I was being let go from my job after repeated write-ups. I was floored by this information as I had been a model employee. The write-ups were all filed in our corporate offices as having occurred on the same day and had been filed by my shift manager. Yes. The same shift manager that had helped me shoo off the creepy-looking self-proclaimed FBI agent. And yes, the same day I had been approached by said person. Coincidentally, my shift manager had been transferred to a store several hundred miles from me and her personal cell phone had been disconnected. Also, I discovered that all of her social media accounts had been deactivated. When I returned to my vehicle after being informed of this when trying to show up for my scheduled shift, I noticed something on my windshield. It was a small folded piece of paper that said, "Stop digging if you know what's good for you, we are watching." Stunned, I stood there in silence on the verge of tears when suddenly I noticed a man in a hooded sweatshirt approaching me from about 40 yards away. As he got closer, he appeared to move faster and faster until he was almost running towards me. Terrified, I jumped into my vehicle and sped off, thanking my lucky stars they hadn't disabled it. Upon arriving at home, my mother informed me that there were several messages left for me on our house answering machine. Another odd occurrence. I never give that number out to anyone as it's only used by my grandmother to make calls to her friends and family in Cuba. The messages were all the same voice with increasing urgency. They were from an agent at our local FBI office that will not be named in this video, asking me to return her calls as soon as possible. When I returned the calls, the number simply rang and rang with no one ever picking up. Later on that evening, I received an email from my brother-in-law stating that he could no longer help me in researching our little hobby case as it was getting in the way of his regular work. When I attempted to message him through text or Facebook, I was met only with the message I had been blocked. Not only by him but also by my sister. The only member of the household I was able to contact was my niece, who informed me that her mother had told her she was no longer allowed to communicate with anyone living in the house with me, that they were moving in with his family in Santa Fe the following month, and then promptly blocked me from responding. This organization of individuals had managed to shatter my family into splinters in the matter of a few weeks, destroyed my livelihood and terrorized me into a state of shock. This was only the beginning. In the coming few days, I began looking for a new job in the retail industry. When I finally received a call back on one of my applications, I was informed that the position had been filled and they would keep me in mind for future openings. When looking into my LinkedIn and Monster profiles, I discovered they had all been deleted. Later that day, I kept getting notifications on my phone saying I was required to re-log into my email to continue using several of my applications. Upon attempting that, I discovered that my email had been hacked. All of my emails deleted, my trash folder emptied. When I logged into my Facebook, all of my messages between Rhea and Brandon had been deleted and both of them removed from my friends list along with every status I had posted during my time in contact with them. My Instagram had been completely deleted with no hope of recovering it. The only proof I have I was ever in contact with either of them are screenshots of text messages between Brandon and I. Because of their tormenting me, I'm now completely agoraphobic and refuse to even leave my bedroom. Heed my warning to stay away from this group and its members. If anyone sees this video and wishes to help me, please contact me at thejugganatiexposed@gmail.com. Thank you for your time, and God bless. Also include